In a video I made recently, I mentioned patriarchy, and someone in the comments to that section said, "Oh, I don't believe in patriarchy. I don't believe in patriarchy." And I thought that was a really interesting comment, because it got me thinking, is patriarchy, or the patriarchy, capital T, capital P, something that it makes sense to have belief or disbelief in, or to apply a word like belief to? Because I guess it resonates with a couple of other things I've been thinking about recently. Partly, well, obviously to do with feminism and patriarchy itself, that's the reason, but also to do with what belief is, and how we think about belief in things like religion, for example. I made videos talking about, is belief really the kind of thing that you can divide groups of people into? Is it one of those things which leads to true dichotomies? Believers, non-believers, is that a true dichotomy? And also some stuff I've been thinking about to do with fundamentalism that I haven't really fully fleshed out yet in my head. But this belief thing seems, and also to do with, I guess, kind of rendering things as object, reification, which I was thinking about recently in an exchange with Dorian Stretton, to do with the patriarchy. Because Dorian had made a video saying, do we feel different about something when we call it patriarchy as opposed to the patriarchy, capital T, capital P. So all those things together, I think, are part of the same formulation in my head. It seems to me that that when we use a word like belief, sometimes what we're seen to be doing is deploying the idea that that the object of our belief, the thing that we believe in, object of our beliefs, I don't know why I said that, because it's appropriate, the thing that we choose to invest belief in, whether that be a belief in a god, belief in something like the patriarchy, or other things, is sometimes, but not always, used as in a way which reifies the thing you're talking about. It's effectively like saying that thing exists in the same way that these ferns and these trees exist, almost. I don't think they'd put it like that if they were asked, these people who say these kind of things. But I think that's kind of how it's working, that the object of our belief is kind of asserted in the world in the way that entities are exerted in the world, physical objects. And so believing in them is about making a kind of ontological claim about their existence, their reality. Not for everyone, but I think a lot of people do. A particular set of people do, actually. I think it'd be fundamentalists on one note or another. I'm going to make another video about fundamentalism. I think there's a kind of fundamentalist approach to what the word belief means, and it asserts that kind of understanding. But I don't think that applies to, it certainly doesn't apply to my version of God. I don't use the word God very often. I don't find a lot of use for it. But it also doesn't apply to my understanding of the patriarchy or feminism. Neither patriarchy nor feminism, I'll leave God out of it for now, really work for me as things to believe in. They work as explanatory systems, explanatory models, sets of discourse, that kind of thing. Patriarchy is a shorthand way of saying a whole set of discourses to do with the way that power works, the way that identity works, with all that kind of interrelated stuff, where the media works. And we shorten that to the word patriarchy. But some folk, it seemed to me, take that word patriarchy, put a capital letter at the beginning of it, and ideally append the word the to it. So it starts to appear like an object, like the tree, the gate, the dog, and then can talk about it as if it's this monolithic, hard, unbreakable, well-founded, well-formed entity, the patriarchy. But it isn't. It's an explanatory system. It's a set of systems which you can invest in, or you can accept parts of, and you can do different things with. And it's whether you use it or not, or whether you accept it or not, isn't to do with whether it really exists, because that word doesn't make any sense in this context. It's whether it's useful, whether it has explanatory power, or whether parts of it has explanatory power, whether it reflects an experience in the world in a way which is useful. Because sometimes it might be, and sometimes it might be not. So I'm just showing you some philosophers behind me there. School of Athens going on there behind me. And the same with feminism. You know, people talk about feminism in the same way, capital T, capital F. And you know, and feminism is populated by feminists, capital F, and they're all the same, and they kind of sign up to the organisation. I know MRAs is often treated in the same way. The men's rights activism seems to be treated in the same way. I don't want to get into that right now, but again, it's a kind of reification model where you turn the object of belief into a physical object, invest that conceptual object with certain properties to do with, you know, boundaries and form and all those kind of things, and then treat it as a whole entity and question its validity in the world as if it is really an object, when that's just not an appropriate way of doing it, it seems to me. Yeah. The patriarchy doesn't exist because it isn't the kind of thing that exists. Patriarchy may be a really useful way of talking about the way that certain aspects of society works. Same as feminism. Yeah, the only place the patriarchy exists is in Stepford Wives, and they meet round that table, you know, in that guy's office, and turn their wives into robots. Yeah, belief. Okay, one last bit on God then, because we talk about God and belief, and atheism and theism dividing around the idea whether God exists or not, or belief in God, a belief in God's existence. But that rigid dichotomy between theism and atheism is said by some people to hinge on that belief idea. But it only hinges on that belief idea if you have an understanding of belief which confers on the object of that belief the status of real physical objects. And that is something that basically fundamentalists engage in. If you're a fundamentalist theist, you will invest the object of your belief, your God, with an existence, a form of existence, the object of your belief, with a form of existence which is solid and real and cow-like, tree-like, gate-like, object-like. If you're a fundamentalist atheist, you will also do that. You will also see God as the sky daddy, the man in the chair up in the clouds, the talking snake being really existent. You will also do that. And then you and the atheist will argue about whether that thing really exists in the world, and whether that belief that you hold in that object, that real object of existence, is a valid belief or not. But that's fundamentalists arguing with fundamentalists. Many of us would say that belief, and I think I'm talking about theists and atheists alike here of a certain stripe, would say that belief isn't necessarily, I know this kind of flies in the face of the creed, necessarily the kind of thing, at least we don't know how we understand belief in the way I'm talking about it right now, that belief isn't necessarily the kind of thing that would attach to something like God. That kind of fundamentalist belief which confers the status of an object on the object of that belief isn't a good way to look at God. It isn't a good way to look, whether you're a theist or an atheist. It isn't a good way to look at feminism, whether you're a feminist or an anti-feminist. It isn't a good way to look at patriarchy, whether you're a feminist or a member of the MRA. It isn't a good way to look at men's rights movement, people, activists, whatever, whether you're an activist or not. Those things aren't objects, and believing in them in that fundamentalist way is, to my mind, fundamentally silly. If you disagree, you'll probably disagree with this. Everyone will disagree with this, because if you're a fundamentalist, you'll think I'm talking crap because you think you hold the truth. And if you're not a fundamentalist, you'll probably think this is crap because you don't believe in dichotomies. And I'm making a kind of dichotomy between what belief is and what it isn't. But, oh well. Swings and roundabouts, eh? How blue that sky is.